Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. What that means is every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we discuss it like we're in a book club, we turn our conversation over to our listeners, and we have them share their thoughts or tell us where we were wrong or continue the very thoughts that we start in this podcast. That is the format of how this works. And we are talking tonight about the case study of Vanitas. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce my co-host. First off, we have the Rick O'Connell to my Book of the Dead. It's Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I actually got to watch something, so I get to talk about a show I watched instead of a game I played or something, which is very unusual. Foundation. Have you guys paid attention to that at all, the series?
I've never even heard of it.
I saw that it came out.
Are you aware of it being Isaac Asimov's book series?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I highly recommend the series. It is very, very good. We finally managed to catch up to the most current episode. It has some of the coolest ideas. If you want AI stuff, it has a little bit of AI stuff. If you want clone stuff, it's got a bit of clone stuff. It's got to deal with just imagine this one concept. You basically have an empirical dynasty that has gone on for a very, very long time, and the dynasty is made of dawn, day, and dusk. That's what they're called. And they're actually three clones of the same person. And so the one that's in day happens to be the one that's ruling at the time. The one in dusk is kind of taking care of around the castle stuff. And then when he gets too old and it's time to have another dawn born, they take him in and vaporize him. And so then dawn becomes the new dusk, or not dawn, day becomes the new dusk, and dawn becomes the new day and starts
Makes
ruling,
sense.
and then you have a new baby, right? And this has been going on for centuries. And
I assume this isn't spoiler territory.
well, not really. This is first episode, they're immediately telling you stories about, these characters. You get to interact with them and everything. So it's definitely not spoilery, but just that concept in itself is just the tip of the iceberg, and what they do with that and about, are they three distinct people? Are they one person? It's really, really fascinating. Space travel, precognition, it's just so many awesome sci-fi elements, and they do it so well. Highly, highly recommend it.
All right. Moving on, we have the Ashley Williams to my Necronomicon, because he mostly just mumbles the words at the end and he just can't finish his thoughts. It's Jason. How are you? Don't worry.
Fantastic.
This time you were groovy.
I was gonna say, this actually is kind of like a compliment in disguise.
Right? This is my boomstick. Anyways, a lot of Path of Exile, which is true, but that's not what I want to talk about. I played League of Legends for probably 9 years straight, and the new Netflix series Arcane, which at the time of this recording, the last 3 episodes just released. I haven't watched them yet. I'm enthralled with this series. I am so fascinated with the storytelling. I'm very happy that they brought a lot of these characters to life in a way that doesn't feel stale. And it's just so refreshing to see a video game world actually be made into something compelling. I'm just all about it. Having a fun time with it. I've read just tons and tons of lore, so watching the pieces kind of fit in with what already established lore is really cool. So definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it.
The worst thing about that show is it makes me care about League of Legends.
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective, I'm officially banned from League of Legends because my account was stolen and then that guy got banned. So I don't have a good relationship with League of Legends, and that show is amazing. So, all right. And my name is Troy. I'm both the captain of the ship and the rebel trying to overthrow it. I am a dichotomy.
Drink.
There you go. I don't. Are we allowed to set it up like that? Probably not. What have I been watching lately? Only Murders in the Building. I finally started it. The show on Hulu has Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez. So if you're a fan of like 80s comedies, you know the first two. And if you're a fan of like the Disney Channel, you would know that last one. I'm a big fan of Steve Martin and Martin Short and the movies they used to do. So getting to see two obviously very close friends with a very funny comedic history, doing a show, and it's a series about three random people who live in a fancy building in New York, and there's a murder in there, and they're all true crime podcast fans, so they decide to start their own true crime podcast and investigate the murder. But like Martin Short, he doesn't care about the mystery; he cares about the podcast producing. So they're like, "Oh no, we're in danger. Can you say that again? Punch it up a little bit." But the best part, actually the part that surprised me most, is how well Selena Gomez plays off the two. Because I would have thought she was the weaker part going in, but the way they play with the ageism and they're like, "Hey, we need to call her. Oh, her age doesn't call. We need to text her." So they like write a letter in a text, "Dear Selena Gomez, if you could meet us, sincerely, your friends." It's very funny. There's a good mystery to it. I haven't finished it. I think they're kind of revealing the answer right now where I'm at, but it has been better than I thought it'd be when I was first seeing commercials, and it had been recommended to me, and so I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I do like Steve Martin and Martin Short, and it was much better than I thought. It's very good.
And
Actually, from what I know of Selena Gomez on Disney Channel, I know that a lot of her comedy and that Wizards of Waverly Place was very deadpan and would work really well with like a Martin Short, and so I like that. I'll have to check it out.
Does it seem like it's going to be a one shot season, or
They've already ordered a season 2. I don't know how that works.
Wow.
If another person gets murdered in the same building, because their rule is they're like, "Hey, there's a murder in the park. We can go investigate that." No, we only investigate the murders in the building. That's what they named their podcast.
Only Murders in the Building.
Very,
That's funny.
And they're playing like one's a Broadway producer, one's a former actor, but they're it's very meta of like we are has been characters and has been actors who were big in the 80s, not as big now. It works on a lot of levels. It's very good.
I'll have to see if he beats my current favorite modern version of Martin Short, which is from Arrested Development.
Yeah.
That's an amazing Martin Short character.
He's not as silly as some of his old characters, but like there's one where he's having a popsicle and suddenly he screams "brain freeze" and does like the Martin Short pratfall, and it's like, whoa, you're a little old for pratfalls, but you're still doing it. All right.
Did you hurt yourself?
Still making me laugh when you do it, so go for it. All right. That's enough about stuff from the 80s. Let's talk about our podcast. So we're doing non-spoiler review. We will do spoiler later, but for now, what did you guys think of the case study of Vanitas with no spoilers? Jason, your pick. Why don't you go first?
Sure. It was it's funny because it's got a lot of strong points and it's got quite a few weak points, and so it's just I'm leaning towards I enjoyed myself, but it really didn't win me over as something that I want to continue watching after this season. But it's I think the world building is really good. I think the dialogue is well done. A lot of the normal tropes that I would see in anime, especially anime that deals with like vampires and monsters, they just weren't there, and that was actually quite refreshing. So it'll be interesting to talk about as we go on, but I had fun with it.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
I could kind of take it or leave it. It certainly has its funny moments, but it also is just not going to be memorable for me. So, yeah, it definitely wouldn't go on any lists of mine. But I also don't really have anything super negative to say about it. I definitely have some nitpicks, but nothing super negative.
Hold on, you?
Yeah, me? What? Shocker.
For me, I'm very middle of the road. Like, there's some elements I liked. There's some things that I thought were boring or not well done. I don't plan on watching further. I'm not upset. I watched as far as we have. I'm very middle of the road, almost completely neutral on it. Like, this is an anime we watched. This is an anime we'll discuss, and some of it could be just coming down from the Sunny Boy episode and how crazy I went with that. I might have just be kind of coasting through this week, and this is a good anime for that. I will say I enjoyed. I don't want to say sexuality, but sensuality that it presented with its characters, where a lot of anime, I think, takes it from the approach of what like a 14-year-old thinks is sensual. Like, oh, I accidentally walked in on a girl coming out of the shower or dressing, and I have a nosebleed. I get punched and upskirts shots, and this was much more mature. Bodies touching and no actual going the distance, but very much implying. And I don't think it was quite to the adult levels, but also much more mature than most animes we see. And I found that refreshing. But I had a hard time with like the main character's chemistry, which I'll go into in the spoiler section. So again, there's pros, there's cons. I'm very middle of the road.
I also want to add, especially since you brought up the sensuality, that like maybe it's completely obvious and it doesn't need to be said for the vast majority of people. This is a vampire flick, so like the sensuality involves a lot of blood drinking, especially even between vampires, which adds sort of a grossness to it. And I know maybe a lot of people that watched Twilight, I deliberately avoided it, like the plague. Maybe that's not a big deal for them, but I know for me it was like a mixture of like you said, Troy, the sensuality was refreshing to see this more mature view on it, but at the same time, it's like, oh, God, they're drinking blood again. Oh, God.
No, this is definitely a twist on the westernized monster vampire.
Yeah,
This is
and
definitely their own version.
it's sexy vampires. It's
Yeah.
vampires with the sexiness of like where Dracula in the Legend of that came from. Not something like Shiki, which is like horror vampires and there's nothing fun about it. This is very much like, ooh, vampires in my room. Woohoo.
Yeah.
In that
And
vein.
And they're even just like drinking each other's blood, which that just, I don't know. When vampires are just drinking each other's blood for fun and for sensuality, I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
All right, let's talk about the OP and the ED. What do you guys think?
I think Jeremy put it best. The music on both of them is great. The visuals were okay. I don't know if they represented the show well. Like, normally when you see an ED or specifically the OP, it's like a bunch of scenes and flashing of stuff that the story is about, right? It felt like it was a slice of life for one of the main characters.
Yeah.
And that's not what this show is about. So the visuals were okay, but yeah, the music was fire. I actually really enjoyed both the OP and ED for the music.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. The way that the OP handles its imagery almost seems more like it's about the personalities of the characters, which aren't really that consistent as far as like their level of humor and comedy and silliness. In the OP, it's almost presented as like this overwhelming level of silliness, and you don't really see that in the anime throughout the series, in the season. But also in the outro, just was, I don't know, it was so it seemed to portray an emotional connection that I didn't really see in the first season, and I'm wondering if they're going to introduce that in later seasons. But it just felt kind of like it didn't belong, just based on what I'd seen. So that was just kind of weird to me. But the music was beautiful.
Also, I love his cat, Mur.
Yeah.
Or is it Murnin or Mur?
Just Mur.
We're just
Yeah,
dropping characters in the non-spoiler section now.
Well, I
he's
guess
in
the
the
cat doesn't really
he's in the
matter.
OP. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I'm like, we're gonna talk about him. Why are you doing this now?
What? He's not in the show notes. I love that cat.
You are welcome to add any character that you want in the middle of the regular discussion, but not really add characters yet. That's why you're Ash Williams. All right. I really only think to echo what you guys have said. When I watched the OP the first time, I'm like, okay, I guess I understand the character's dynamic, and then the show started, and that wasn't the dynamic at all, and I'm like, okay, because, but the music's great. Getting it in, never skipped it. Didn't watch it. I like look down at my notes or check my phone, but I listen to it every time. So, yeah. All right, before we go to the spoiler section, I want to swap things around. Just so you guys know, if you don't want to go into the spoiler section, so you know what the next anime is going to be, it's the Idaten Deities, No Only Peace. That will be the next anime we watch. And if you would like to discuss it, you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can come visit us on our website, theanimebakaclub.com, and hit the contact us button, or leave a message wherever you found the podcast and get us back to it. And now,
go ahead.
Nope, you're up.
Okay, cool. We also now have discuss comments on the episodes. So if you want to make a comment on a specific episode that's aired, you can do that.
Yep, that way it'd make it easier for you guys to find each other and chat. We're also starting to dip our toe into Reddit as well. So you might see our comments there in the anime Reddit or some of the other similar Reddits. All right. Now we're going on to the spoiler section, so it is up for you to decide if you would like to follow along with us, if you are okay being spoiled or have no fear of spoilers for having watched it. It's up to you, but we are going to be spoiling plot, characters, the name of the cat, everything comes up here.
I see what you did there.
All right. So the anime starts with a explanation of vampires in this world, and kind of the backstory of a vampire named Vanitas. Most vampires are born under a red moon, and they have red eyes, and they're all the same. And then one of the Sneetches had a star on his belly, and he was different. So no, that's Dr. Seuss. No, the one was born under a blue moon with blue eyes, and none of the vampires liked him, so they kicked him out. And he got really, really mad about it, and so he created a book where he could get used to get revenge on all the vampires with this grimoire. And it's called the Curse of Vanitas, the Grimoire of Vanitas, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a book of Vanitas. That is kind of the framework of what we're told of when this story starts. And then we meet our one of two main characters. This is a young vampire who is flying on an airship because this is in France and it's a steampunk world in a weird way. Like, it's not very steampunky, but there is an airship once in a while, and sometimes there's robots randomly. Like, when a robot would show up, I'd be like, oh yeah, robots. I guess that's steampunky, and I guess they exist in this world. But there hasn't been one in 5 episodes, so I don't see why they have to include one now. But all right.
Yep.
Anyway,
this felt very much like I was playing Final Fantasy, or like a Final Fantasy, like one of them. Like it just felt, yeah, just kind of stuff was thrown in as far as world building.
Except for it, like we're on the airship here, and then we see it one other time, and like it flies by once, and it's like, oh, okay, so there's airships.
Well, that's because they don't meet Sid until like season 3.
That's a nice pull.
I think I see what you did there.
Okay, so this character has white hair. He's a young vampire. He also has the ability to see memories when he drinks blood. His name is No. Right?
No way.
No way.
Is it No Way?
No way.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like Noah, so that's why they
I think
said
the E's
that
not silent.
Child of the Ark.
No E. No
E.
No A. And what did you guys think of our first main protagonist?
I liked him for the role that he played, but I don't particularly like his character. That's kind of an odd way to say it because I'm not 100% sure how I feel about him. I liked him in the story. I thought he had decent convictions. And I also liked his perspective on the differences between humans and vampires, because we come to find out that he was raised by humans, right? Also, the idea that you have a vampire that has the ability that during feeding, he's basically taking life energy and he can turn that into your memories. That then implies, oh, are there other vampiric abilities based off of consuming somebody's life energy, right?
Mhm.
So I found that interesting as far as world building. Unfortunately, the anime doesn't expound upon that too much. But I do like his relationships with other characters better than I like his character. I think is the best way to put it.
I kind of found him a little bit off-putting in the first couple of episodes, just because he was kind of annoying, like jumping all over, overreacting to everything. Um, it later became more understandable as we got some of his backstory and we got to see what he'd been through, what kind of life he'd had, and how he'd behaved among other people, what he had been restricted to, what he hadn't experienced. I could kind of get it to some degree then. Um, but he had this sort of constant introspection that left him almost seeming a little bit wishy-washy, that kind of bugged me. And I'm not going to say that that didn't, you know, that pulled him away from his convictions, because like you said, Jason, he did have convictions and he stuck to those. But like he was in a constant state of uh, doubting and re-observing everything. And well, that's cool sometimes. I don't know, maybe it was just the way that they presented it or the situations that he did it in. I kind of found it a little bit like it undermined him or slowed things down when they didn't need to be, or created problems when there didn't need to be didn't need to be problems, and it was just a bit obvious. So yeah, not a huge fan of that character.
I'm actually 100% in your corner on that one because, I mean, he's presented as a country bumpkin, but he's almost too naive about everything and always being like, why would this person make these choices about everything? And to the point where it's like, I mean, I get you raised in the country, but you understand like a little bit about people, right? Like you understand like emotions and stuff. It was almost like I'm 4 days new into the world, and
Yeah.
this is what humans do, and these are what emotions are. The way he was always analyzing stuff and trying to come to understanding about everything, it just seemed too much for just the. I was raised in the country. That's why I'm like this.
Yeah.
Um,
There's one scene where he's like, what does it mean to be in love? Like, there is
yeah,
absolutely nothing that has led up to this point to make me think that you don't know what it means to be in love.
right. He had two best friends. He has a fiance, and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, but he was raised in the country, so he doesn't know what love is. What?
That's a thing in country, we just don't get it.
We don't understand your
we just
highfalutin love.
we just marry the people that our parents tell us to marry.
Uh, the other issue, and this is actually an issue with both main characters, but I'll bring it up here, is that the both characters go back and forth on which one's the silly one and which one's the straight man in the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the same scene. So like in the OP, we see this character running around Paris and like, oh my god, I love Paris, and the other character is like following him behind, grumpy that they're doing this. And so I thought, okay, so we have the silly character and then we have the straight man who's bouncing off him, and then we meet the other character and he's like, I'm totally silly and wacky and I'll do anything. And this guy's like, well, I'm not putting up with that. I'm the straight man. Oh, but I see Paris, so now I'm crazy. And the other guy suddenly becomes the straight man. I'm like, you're giving me whiplash, and it's throwing off the comedic rhythm really badly. It was a weird pairing, and it made me not really care about their friendship, relationship, wherever it's going. I It didn't work for me. The duo was probably the weakest part of this anime for me.
Just to echo a little bit of that, I tend to agree because about the having a tough time latching onto the characters, because one moment you've got this fight of who's going to be the funny man, and we're trying to pass a joke, and then the next minute we have this gory, violent scene. And it's like, not only did we not know what the characters wanted to be, I was unsure what the story wants to be. Do you want me to take this story seriously? Do you want me to laugh at this story? So I think we just had a little bit of conflict of what's the like what identity are you trying to take on?
Mhm.
Sexy vampire identity every time. Every time. All right. So going a little further into the story, we are introduced to him when he sees a woman fainting and he catches her. So we know he's a very chivalrous guy. He has tea with her. She's on her way to see a doctor, and then we learn she's a vampire even before we know he's a vampire. And they're attacked. There's a guy who's like standing on the airship, and he comes in and he just starts attacking them. And so Noe picks her up, carries her away, saves her, and then she starts. What do they call it? I called it corruption all the time, but in my notes,
Curse.
Curse. Yeah, she's one of the cursed ones. So this black tentacles things changes her form, and she actually starts attacking with these tentacles. She bites him, and he becomes poison. And then this guy that was outside the airship jumps in to save him. And this is our other main character, and he introduces himself as Vanitas, and he's like, "Oh my god, that's the blue-eyed vampire." He's like, "No, I took his name. He passed his name on to me, and I have his book, but I'm a human." And we do learn he has some vampire powers because of he has some of the blood powers of Vanitas, who gave him his name, but he is a human. And I'm going to ask you guys what you think about the character, but I gotta say, the most disappointing thing about this is we have these super powerful vampire battles, and almost all of them are, I'm going to open my book, then the thing's going to happen, and we win the battle.
Sailor Moon.
It's even worse than Sailor Moon.
Because there's no transformation sequence.
Yeah, it doesn't have the yeah. It was it. I was so disappointed in the battles of this. They were the most boring part of the entire anime.
Okay.
Where you have like, oh, we could be doing crazy stuff with these vampires and these corruption powers, and they're just like, I open my book, battle over. All right. So, but what do you guys think of Vanitas?
He's a confusing character because it's very tough to get what his motivations are. You know, he seems to plainly state them, but then he acts in a completely different way. And it's also his relationships with other people, like even people he pays for information.
I want to explain a little bit what you mean, to go into detail. His motto is, I'm going to save the vampires, but he says it in a way like, I'm doing world domination. Like, ha ha ha, I will save you. You can't stop me if you wanted. Wait, does he realize he's saying something good?
There's even a point where like this is questioned in universe a bit, because Noe is like, what is this salvation? He's looking at somebody that's dead. He's like, is that salvation? Like, what does he mean by this? Is he trying to kill us all?
Sorry to cut you off there, Jason. I just wanted to.
No, it's fine,
exactly
because that's exactly leads into the point I'm trying to make, is that I'm trying to get a fix on this character, and they make him like this mysterious, like there's this mysteriousness about him, but he's so mysterious that you don't know who he is. And he tends to have certain, like one moment he's pissy and moody and doesn't want to be around Noe, but then in another moment, you know, he wants to be best friends. And then, and is he full human? Is he half human? Is he just corrupted by the blue moon? Is he not? He's got the tattoo. Like, we just don't know. We don't know enough about him. And I think another problem that this anime has as a whole, I'm pretty sure it's flagged as shonen, and it's trying to throw as many story beats and threads into this first 12 episodes to try and hook you. And the problem is that none of it gets resolved. And it's very tough to follow and understand a complete character. And so, and I think Vanitas is a really great example of them wanting to do a bunch of different things and not following through with any of them.
Yeah. To me, he kind of comes off as a landmine, or not a landmine, but like a field of landmines. Like you don't know what's going to happen next. Is somebody going to say something and it's just going to blow up and he's going to get, like you say, all pissy? Or is he going to get all jokey and silly and he's just going to start laughing maniacally for no reason and say that people are funny? Like you never really know with this guy from scene to scene what he's going to do. And I like mysterious characters because there's a lot to kind of dissect, unpack, and puzzle out from them. There was a bit here. Like, I definitely see the strings to start unraveling about this character. But I kind of felt it was frustrating because he was just unstable. He was so unstable that every time I thought maybe I should grab a string and start unraveling, I just didn't want to because I kind of got irritated. So yeah, I don't know. I like him more than the other one just because he's more spontaneous and a bit more sinister. But yeah, still didn't really like him either.
A lot of the issues that you guys have with him, I think, at least the anime addresses them. I mean, in like the second to last episode, they even say he's a contradiction. He wants to use everyone, but doesn't want to get anyone hurt. And he even says, like, I could never fall in love with someone who could fall in love with me. But it's, and I think what we see is, hey, no, I'm going to use you. You'll be valuable to me. I want you around. And as soon as Noe's like, okay, I kind of want to be around, he's like, nope, never mind. That's too much. That's too close. Go away. And it does create that frustration. I felt it too. And the complaint I have about the duo goes very much into him. Very much times he's the silly man, and then suddenly he'll be frustrated that Noe is silly. It made no sense to me. The one thing I did like about the character, when he decides to be charming, that was some of the best screen time and most interesting plot that I had found. So when he's flirting with any character, but Jean's the one he flirts with the most.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is actually interesting, especially because he pushes away everyone so much, and then suddenly he's like pulling people in, and he actually can do it well. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting character all of a sudden. And then they'd go to a fight, and I wouldn't care anymore.
Yeah, I will admit that the Jean date sequence near the end was definitely one of my favorite moments in the anime. So
Or,
you got a point there.
their first scene, like on the balcony, I was like, what is gonna happen? Is he committing suicide here? I mean, because he was
Yeah.
all in, and it was interesting and entertaining to watch. And then they went to a huge flashback, and I was bored. And then they went to a huge fight, and I was bored.
Yep.
Whatever.
It's almost
Alright.
like this should have been more of a slice of life romance to really capitalize on what they were trying to do.
And I want to state this here. I want to state this here and now for all to hear. This is not a great vampire anime, but it's 100 times better than Vampire Knight. There's nothing worse than Vampire Knight in the world. I hate the anime Vampire Knight, and I always will. And so, as I'm watching this, I kept saying, at least it ain't Vampire Knight.
I think to give a bit more context about vampires in this, just real quickly. They're obviously not undead. They're more powerful, but they have vampirism, so they need to. Well, actually, they don't even need to suck blood. They can suppress that urge, and so but they don't burn in light. They don't seem to be afraid of garlic, and they're super strong. But they
their
don't.
their only weakness is their names. Like
Yeah.
they have secret names that if you find out about, then you can have some control over them.
Okay, I want to dive into this for just a minute. They talk about the formula of the world. I think this is an interesting and neat idea as far as a quote unquote magic system, because they don't particularly have magic powers. In order to manifest what looks like magic in this world, they rewrite what they call the formula or the making of their existence. And I found that really cool idea for a power system. So, for instance, if Vanitas is going to save somebody with his book, he's rewriting that particular moment. Or if someone's going to cast some sort of ice spell, it's because they're rewriting the formula in that area. I thought that was really neat.
Great concept. They never do anything interesting with it.
Nope.
Yeah. Plus, like the whole concept of true name magic is something that's been in fiction for a long time.
Mhm.
And one of the key things about true names is you don't tell anybody what the true name is. So every time Vanitas heals somebody and then says, "Oh, your true name is such and such," right there out loud to everybody who is around, he just gave everybody in the room true name control over that vampire. I just, oh.
No, so apparently there was a war, but now they coexist, or at least they were in separate worlds, and now they're coexisting. And so I find we don't get too many stories of like the after effects of these kinds of wars between a monster or demi-human world and the real world or the human world. Again, I thought the world building was good. They just didn't stick the landing, I guess is the best way to put it.
I'll agree with that. I think that they had a lot of potential. They had a lot of really good ideas, and they did go somewhere with it. But like one of my criticisms that I've mentioned to you guys in chat before is that the vampires clearly live longer than the humans, based on how old that some of like the senators and some of the others are, right? And so even if you take nothing else, simply living longer is an advantage to research, science, technical development. So if you have this group of demi-humans, vampires, that are off in their own world, which they happen to call alternate Paris, and basically model after Paris, there is no reason to think that they would not advance faster. And then if you include their speed and their strength and everything else that they have, that are advantages, they should be ahead of human technology and ahead of human development. Their culture shouldn't perfectly mimic humans, especially when they're like, we really don't encourage traveling back and forth, right? So you're kind of isolating the two societies. So they would diverge. And if you want to go in the other direction and say that, they decide that they're going to redefine themselves according to the parameters of their new species, since they're a branch off of the human tree, and their new species involves a lot of blood sucking and a lot of magic and who knows what other things that they do that we're not aware of yet because we're only in season 1, that could push them backwards in civilization, right? There's just so many options to say, what does their world look like? And it seemed more like a facade of difference, having like a sky with crystal lines and bats and a red moon in it, and saying this is a different world when everything else is the same.
It's got to be volume, right? Well, because the
Like
humans,
how many vampires are there?
Yeah, I mean, because technically the humans beat the vampires in the war. They came to peace, but it sounds like the humans are kind of the winners. So that's, and we don't have, humans don't have powers. Humans, they, like you said, they have the same technology and access to it. So it seems like it's just got to be a numbers game. There just can't be as many vampires as there are humans.
You could be right. I mean, especially worldwide, I think that's true. But then at the same time, we've only gotten a glimpse of Paris and reference.
Paris.
What's that?
An alternate Paris.
And alternate Paris, exactly. We've only gotten a glimpse of that, but we do know that Noé was traveling somewhere on the airship, and it was to Paris. Right. So he was not in Paris. So vampires, presumably, what I'm saying is the human world extends beyond Paris, and vampires are in those locations. So that would lead me to reason that the formulaic change on the world took place worldwide. So there should be vampires from everywhere, not just Paris.
And because it seems to be very clear that they're not undead like most versions of vampires, because they have children, and those children come out as vampires and they grow up into adults. So there's yeah, there just seems to be some I don't know if inconsistencies or just unexplained. Because there's some of them that are hundreds of years old, and then there's some that are 14.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's a numbers game, then I guess they're just not breeding as fast as humans. It's just not
That's a good point.
expounded upon.
I have no right to say this after our Sunny Boy episode, but let's not go down rabbit holes right now. I'm just
It's just
so
too
tired.
early in the podcast.
I'm just so tired. Hey, you know what happens next in the plot?
What's that?
He cures her. He opens the book, and so she's fine now.
What a surprise.
And then
No, she's woozy.
That's true.
the airship security very mad that he snuck on board the ship. Very upset. And he's like, well, you can't catch me. And then he falls out the ship. He gets hit on the head by like debris and falls out. And Noe goes after him. We don't see how they manage to land safely, but they do.
Yeah, number one, airship security is more concerned with him breaking in than with the vampire that was rampaging.
Super rampaging.
Super vampire. And then number two, like you say, when we see them having landed, he's literally embedded halfway into the ground, upside down.
But he does say, "I don't know how I'm alive, but I am."
That's like a Deadpool moment where he's like, "Yeah, this is too ridiculous, so I'm going to call it out, and now it's acceptable."
He's like, "Hey, Noe, you should join me, and join my quest to save the vampires." And Noe's like, "No, hard pass." And he keeps ranting on that you should help me. They go back. Noe goes back to get his stuff from the airship, which ends up getting them arrested because the guards see them. But Noe also passes out because his bite had been, when he got bit, it was poisonous. But we also, in this episode, Noe is technically narrating this, kind of like a Watson to Sherlock Holmes style story, and he talks about how he's the one who kills Vanitas.
Which I really don't think that they need to even go into at this point, because by the end of this season, we're still nowhere near a situation where that would matter. So, like, feels a bit premature.
In the next episode, they're in jail, and they're set free at the invitation of Count Orlok, who is a vampire who works for the Human Queen as a relations manager between vampires and humans in the human world. They go to see him. He has arrested the young woman. I think her name. What was her name? Amelia. Her name was Amelia. She's been arrested because they execute vampires who get cursed because they go crazy. And so they're planning on executing her. And so Vanitas and Noe are like, no, we cured her. And they get back most of her stuff. But he's like, no, I want the book back too. And you need to set her free. And they come up with a deal. And it's Noe who defends this. Is like, we will prove to you that this book works at curing the curse. We know there's a killer vampire on the loose in Paris, which, by the way, apparently there's always a killer vampire loose in Paris. So much so because we go from like one arc to the next, and they're like, oh yeah, in the past 3 months, 6 people have died. How are you not confusing the two killers if it's all happening at the same time?
Yeah,
anyway.
That's a good point.
Anyway, stupid thought. Anyway,
rabbit holes.
my bad. We have to do a little banter. We just don't need to go into like the history of this world. I don't think the writers care.
That's fair.
Well, they shouldn't write something that has little threads there, because we're gonna latch on.
So we meet. We'd already seen one, but we meet Vanitas's informants, and we find out these are half human, half vampire informants. The main one though is Dante, and he gives them information. Okay, this is where the killer is. So they go. Noe likes to throw Vanitas at the vampire as a distraction, but they're trying to capture him, and he uses the book to stun him. But then 2 new characters arrive, and this is Luca and Jean. And we find out later Luca is the Grand Duke of the vampire world, second only to the Queen and the advisor to the Queen, even though he is a young child. and Jean is his protector. And they are here because they think the book is causing the curses, and they want to get the book because Luca's brother has been cursed. And Vanitas is like, no, but I'll cure him for you if you want. And so then Jean attacks. And so when Jean attacks, she pulls out this giant metal dragon, I don't even know how to describe it, arm gauntlet that apparently has killed thousands of vampires. It even has its like own name, and Vanitas is like, oh, we gotta run. That's a bad thing.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's the Hellfire Witch.
Yeah.
It was like 1,000 vampires that turned on vampires, and she killed them
it was
all. Or something.
It was 100, yeah. But
100.
I'm sure she probably killed a lot more during her time because apparently she's what they called a burrow, which means executioner. And so at the time, she was just killing vampires left and right, even aside from that one interaction. But now she's Luca's chevalier, her knight, or his knight.
All right. So let's talk about Luca and Jean. What do you guys think of that?
Luca doesn't get too many scenes, or at least too many scenes that matter. He tends to be the small child plot device that has some comedic lines. And then, but Jean is amazing. And she gets better as the series goes on because she's, this mousy in person, but she will annihilate an entire army if you let her go. And I do basically in 10, 11, and 12, she steals the show as far as like the scenes that she's in. So I'd like to learn more about both these characters, but unfortunately the anime wanted to run a lot of different threads, like I said earlier. So
I thought Luca was pretty funny just in those moments where he's like got the kid crush on Jean, she's his protector, but at the same time he's like, no, I'm gonna grow up and marry her. He never says that, but that's what's in his head. And then Jean, I thought she was a great character. I actually really enjoyed when she was on the scene, but there was something that just kind of bugged me a little bit in the back of my head at all times, and that was when you have a character that's been through as much as she has and that's killed as many and has lived presumably long enough to have taken part in the war and everything, right? So I'm guessing quite a while. Her level of innocence and naivety, and especially in the ways of love and things like that, just seemed to contradict everything else. Like I would expect her to be more jaded and to be more, even possibly more sensual, simply because she's dealt with more serious things than just, the teenage love, heart flutterings. So I did enjoy seeing her do it. It was funny, and I thought it brought more lightness to the anime at the time, and it kind of seemed like that's what they wanted to do, but it didn't seem to fit everything else she was.
Yeah, I agree with that. She was actually going to be my favorite character in anime until another character shows up much later who ended up stealing it away. But yeah, I enjoyed her character. Everything you say, Jeremy, is also true. It doesn't fit with the backstory we're presented. She's like supposed to be this jaded killer and blushes at the first sign of anything. And is always like snacking and just like, oh, and Lady Dami, you're so cool. I just love you so much. They treat her like a very childlike character. But she also has some of the best scenes, most entertaining scenes for me. So I was a big fan. All right, so after they get away from her, and then they come up with a plan to deal with her, even though Luca asks her not to kill them. They go out, and basically Vanitas distracts her long enough for the very killer they were trying to stop. He wakes up and attacks her, and then Vanitas uses the book to cure this cursed vampire, showing off the power. And then he's like, "Oops, I was supposed to do that in front of Count Orlok, but hey, Count Orlok sent his assistants and maid to watch." And so they're like, "Hey, don't worry, we will bring the information back for you."
Didn't like that. I think that we should have gotten a little bit of indication that they were following them before this moment. That seemed like a last minute, like, there, we caught it. They're good.
Yeah, or just have them say, and I'm going to send my servants to watch. So there's no need to capture a dangerous vampire and bring him all the way over here. Yeah. then he had told Noe, "Hey, go grab Luca and cover his mouth, and just stand kind of far away. Don't worry about it. Just do this. It'll be for the best." And then he goes up to Gene. He's like, "I will have my friend snap that kid's neck unless you surrender." Where Noe can't hear, and so she does surrender. And then he does some creepy stuff.
Vampire stuff. Even though he's not a vampire, he like does the human part of the vampire stuff.
Right. My daughter bounced after this episode. She was like, I'm not really cool with vampires anyway. And I'm like, yeah, but vampires, part of their monsterness is their lack of consent for the horrible body things they do to your body. And so this was, a twist on it. He's forcing a vampire to kiss him, pinning her against a wall.
Nope.
But I also, I don't even know why I'm defending it, but just that he just threatened to snap a kid's neck. We're not supposed to think this character is a good person. He is clearly a bad person doing a bad thing.
Yes.
That's part of it. He wants her to hate him for what he's doing. Again, that is part of it. Vanitas likes to do horrible things so people will think he's horrible. That is his character.
Mm-hmm.
But it pisses Luca off a lot. But Luca and Jean then do run away and swear to kill him another day.
Yes.
They go back to Count Orlok's and they ask Amelia, did you see the
Charlatan?
Right? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When the vampires who have been corrupted say they saw a fog and then saw a charlatan parade before they became corrupted. And she's like, I don't remember. That sounds right. And this is where we learn that Noe can drink your blood and see your memories. So he does that. He does see that she saw the charlatan parade right when she became corrupted. And then suddenly Dominique de Sade shows up, granddaughter of Marca de Sade. Do you guys know who Marca de Sade is?
No.
I don't.
You know the word sadism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came from him, because he used to write such horrible erotic fiction with just like obviously he's not the first sadist in history, but the word sadism was invented to explain the stuff he was writing about and did.
Wow.
He is.
Oh wow.
He is notorious in history as the most sadist person ever, right? Even by today's standards, his work is rough.
Wow.
So that's her grandfather, which kind of explains some of the collars and torture rooms we see later on. Also, though, her grandfather is Noe's teacher, right?
Well,
yes,
I thought so. They kept calling
one, right?
him grandfather. Yeah, shapeless one.
So his teacher is Marca de Sade, which, okay, this is a, I'll say, thirsty anime, and to have that character even referenced and have his family line around, and I was like, okay, anime.
Thirsty anime. I like that. That's very much describes.
Very
Baka
funny.
Baka Baka made that joke on Twitter, and so we did that already.
Yeah.
But
claim.
Okay, so what do you guys think of Dami, whose real name is Dominique, but everyone calls her Dami for short?
I wish we would have seen more interaction between her and Noe, and it may have helped me care more about Noe, because their current interactions in this episode don't seem to match up with later episodes as far as their relationship together, and we don't get a lot of I started to care about that relationship, and I wanted more of that relationship on screen, and we didn't get it. And I understand that they've got two separate lives, but they're trying to stay in touch, and there's two different worlds, so never know who's in which world and if they can even meet up. But I really wish they would have expounded on that more.
I didn't really see much with her. Like, I kind of found her not really contributing very much to the plot. I mean, she seemed like a way to get them to the other world and then just be present in the story, his backstory, and then just kind of tag along with Jean's thing. Otherwise, it almost seems like she's a throwaway character. And I do find that kind of sad because they gave her an important role of being his fiance. And like you said, Jason, there's a lot there that could be told story-wise. But yeah, they didn't really give her anything important to do in this story, I thought.
I kind of disagree and agree. I do think like she leaves too early. I did really like the character. I see her as the connection Noe has to the royal families and stuff and all that. Also, where he came from with his teacher and the big backstory with Lewis. She's obviously a part of that and his attachment to that. I really liked her scene where she tortures Vanitas or Vanitas. And then the next time she sees him, she's like, hey, there's this thing going on. He's like, I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna go protect you. That really won me over to the character. So I did really like her. I liked her interactions with Jean, and I just kind of like that she's clearly in love with Noe, and he's clearly confused about what he wants about everything because he's from the country, guys.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what love is.
So she's there trying to help him, trying to guide him, trying to be there for him, and it's his. So and she even says like it's hard for him to suck people's blood because of the memory thing. So I just always be willing to let him do that. And she was also a very sensual character, and I do like strong, sensual female characters, and so she was well liked by me. But she does put a collar on our Noe here and drag him to the vampire world. And Vanitas follows because a human can go, or he, not any human, he can go if he's touching a vampire. So he jumps in after them when they go through the portal and they travel to Atlas Paris or alternate Paris. And it looks just like Paris, but like there's cracks in the sky.
Yeah.
How dare you?
The next episode talks about the world formula theory that Jason had already mentioned, and about the Tower of Babel incident where a guy who discovered the world formula theory accidentally made vampires when he altered reality, and what came of it was vampires. Also floating stuff for skyships and stuff.
Yeah, it was coal once, but now it's blue floating stuff.
Yeah. And vampires. You know,
Blue floating stuff.
Yeah. Only after you inhale it.
We get a very thirsty scene where Dami takes Noe into her changing room, and he's like, I should go if you're going to change. And she's like, hey, do you want to drink? You got to ask for it. And then they show Vanitas like sitting outside the door, and it's like, oh, again, this anime is mature.
Thirsty.
It's subtlety, the way it wants to imply things. Anyway, I love that Vanitas complains about it later.
He's like, I heard your little dalliance.
They go to a masquerade, as one does when you're a vampire.
Well, I mean, what else
Vampire
you gonna do?
the Masquerade.
And then Dami, she takes Vanitas into her personal torture room and tries to find out if he's a servant of the vampire of the blue moon. And he's like, hold on, let me just do something. And he goes out onto a chandelier in front of all the vampires, and he's like, yo, I'm from the vampire of the blue moon. I'm gonna cure you all, and there ain't nothing you suckers can do about it. Here's the mark of the blue moon. Suck it, vampires. And of course they all get really mad, and they
Kill
the
him.
one thing is everyone thinks, because the original Vanitas swore vengeance against the vampires with his book, everyone thinks the book is the problem that is causing all these cursed vampires. So they're like, oh, let's go kill him. And then Dami's sister in a mask shows up, and she's like, oh, let's kill him, and actually attacks him when he's on the chandelier, and Jean saves him.
Mm-hmm.
They go out onto a balcony, and she has a thirst problem.
Well, so something's happening where there's a sound that's affecting all of the vampires, and everyone's kind of going nuts. They're not necessarily cursed, but this sound is making them lose control, and Jean is semi affected by it at this moment.
Right. And Noah and Luca are running around trying to find Vanitas and help.
And there are also cursed vampires that
Are starting
they
to
may,
appear.
yeah, they may not have like revealed before that they were cursed, but this sound is bringing the curse out of them.
Yeah.
So Vanitas lets Jean drink from him, and again another very provocative scene, like boom boom in a row, and this is actually when I made the thirsty tweet on our Twitter podcast, because I was just like, okay, is this going to be every episode, like 2 or 3 sucking scenes,
Right?
But again, I think they're well done.
I just wonder how the heck Vanitas gets his blood back in time, because it happens so often for him, and it seems like every time that it happens, it seems like the person that's doing it is in a state of bloodlust, and so they're not going to stop until they drain a lot. So how does he recover all that blood? I just don't get it.
Maybe he's got a lot of iron in his diet.
Well, that must be it.
I was gonna make a joke about taking a blue pill and calling someone after 4 hours, but I won't do that. Meanwhile, Noe runs into the villains, and they're called charlatan, but they have individual names. There's like a guy in like a spider mask, and there's a cloud monster,
Yep.
who I think the design is really cool. And my favorite part about him is, or her, I think it's her, who whenever the camera is pointing at it, the face is pointing directly back at the camera, whether it's from the side. The face is never facing the characters, it's always facing the camera, which makes me think that whoever's looking at it, whenever angle you look at it from, you see that big creepy smiley face on it, which I thought was a unique design. That was actually pretty cool.
And speaking of creeping smiles, can we talk about? Well, I guess we don't need to talk about it, but I want to mention Vanitas's smile is super creepy every time they zoom in on him, and he gets that creepy bad guy smile going on.
Yep. I love that smile. Yeah, I was one of my favorite parts of him.
That's his Han Solo smile, man. You need more scoundrels in your life.
It is 100% creepy though. I love it. Yeah, that entity is really, really interesting. I like how they sometimes they'll zoom in and you'll get to see like just a portion of the smile, and it'll have like the gray particles wafting around effect and everything. That's cool. I also noticed that there's a lot of scenes that we get of Vanitas with what looks like a blue version of that creature over his shoulder, gripping him. And so, since he's not a vampire, so we're told, I don't know, since he's not a vampire, air quotes, it makes me wonder what the rules of that curse might be, if it's a curse, the blue one, and also what the colors have to do with anything, because it's been made a big deal of. The whole thing is about blue moon, red moon, right? The colors blue and red, and there is a point in time where in the anime, he uses his book to change the foundation of some of those floating blue particles, because they're used as a power source for automatons. He changes the foundational structure of the particles that are powering a specific automaton, turning them red, and that makes the automaton go crazy and start attacking people. So I'm wondering if red is more hostile and blue is supposed to be inherently good, or what. I'm not sure.
I think blue's just supposed to represent a rewriting of the formula by the book.
Well, but blue was the result of rewriting coal by Plato, I believe it was.
Back to what Troy was saying, I don't think we're meant to dive this deep into this anime.
I like to be unpredictable and never do what I'm expected to do.
I actually think Jerry's onto something a little bit. I do think the colors matter. I do think the fact that the floating color is blue and changes to red matters.
How dare you?
I know. Hold on, I
tried to rescue us.
I need to get that knife out of your back. Hold on.
I know, right?
I just don't know how it mattered. The one thing I wanted to add, though, in the very first episode, in the opening narration about the original Vanitas, he has the same creepy smile face with the blue that hangs over this Vanitas' shoulder. That's how they represent him in their flashback story. Is that he ends up looking like this. And I thought, I was like, oh, it's like a children's drawing. But no, that's how they apparently can end up looking.
Mm-hmm. Well, but then there's also a flashback scene where we see a woman with long hair and a staff holding a white-haired child talking to young Vanitas and saying, you know, can't believe what you did here to this boy. I'm going to take you too. And so I'm wondering, like, who is that Vanitas? Was Vanitas a girl? I got the impression that it was a guy, but I'm kind of wondering if that was Vanitas.
You're talking about number 71. Who they eventually call number 71 is that
well,
white?
I think that was the kid, the white.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the woman.
The woman, yeah.
I have no idea. You know, we really shouldn't go down rabbit holes and really not look into this stuff.
Well, and I think the problem is the reason we're kind of speculating at this point is because, again, we don't get enough focus on a few threads. There's just too many things that got thrown out as far as story beats, and nothing was coalesced. And it's tough to grab onto anything in this world.
Yeah, because we're here for sexy vampires. If you're here for anything more than sexy vampires, there's no way you're going to be happy with this.
It's
That's
like
so
there's
fair.
two people that were fighting over how to make this into a show. It's like sexy vampires, no cool backstories.
I want to do like
vampires.
a Full Metal Alchemist. I'm here for sexy vampires, and that's what we're doing. All right. We come to Noe trying to battle the charlatan group, and the mist monster. It has a name, but I'm not going to remember it. Grabs him and it's like, "Oh, I know you. I knew you through Lewis." And then we get Noe's backstory of when he moved in with Teacher and his grandchildren, and Lewis was there, who is Dami's brother, and him, Dami, and Lewis all lived together. And basically, hey, a new kid, and then had human parents. They make him cry. Lewis, though, is one of the cursed ones and is just dealing with the fact that he's going to die someday. He's going to become a monster and have to be executed, and dealing with all that BS until the day comes and he begs Noe to kill him, as you know, he feels himself being taken over. And Noe can't bring himself to do it, but don't worry. Grandfather shows up and rips the kid's head off like it was the best day ever. Like, boom! I'm here. That was awesome. You guys see that? His head flew like a mile.
Yes.
And his best friend was making him wooden presents.
Oh God, yeah.
That was rough.
Wooden stakes to give to Noe to help him kill him. Which, okay, do wooden stakes kill vampires? Because we never have had that mentioned. No one carries a wooden stake as a weapon. Not even the vampire hunters carry wooden stakes.
Nope. Which is also weird. Like, why do they turn to ash when they die? They decided to stick with that. It just blows my mind, like, which things they stick to in lore and which things they don't, and which things are up in the air.
So one thing that was consistent, you didn't turn to ash unless you were a curse bearer when you died. Like a weight turned. Yeah.
Oh.
None of the other vampires that died that were not curse bearers turned to ash.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can't remember any that did. That's cool. Okay.
After the flashback, Noe almost has his name taken by Charlatan, who's like, I can take you to Lewis. But Vanitas saves him. And then Jean jumps in. She's feeling good. You know, she's had a lot of blood. So the bad guys run away. They go with Dami to try to help the other vampires. Vanitas and Noe come across a little girl who's become too corrupted to save, which is apparently a thing, and so Vanitas has to kill her. That strikes very hard for Noe, who just had his flashback about not being able to kill his best friend at his request, and then here sees a guy do the mercy kill that's needed, and trying to figure out how that matches. And like Jeremy said, is this the salvation you're giving us? Is that what you meant? I don't know what's going on. From the country.
Right, come on, you're that dense. Like, he saves the ones he can, and if he can't, he has to kill them to protect everyone else. It's not that complicated, Noe.
He's from the country.
Jeez.
All right. That masked vampire, she attacks them with ice and freezes Vanitas to the floor. But then this red-haired Duke, his name is Ruthven, shows up, and he knocks the vampire's mask off, and she's like, well, this is the guy who's behind everything. And Noe's like, no, it isn't. You guys are just being racist. You need to stop this right now. And you're being rude. And Ruthven's like, you're right, I am being rude. I will free him, and I will make you guys my guest. And so you
Not a
have
bad guy. Not
nice
a bad
safety.
guy at all.
Not bad at all. Eye patch, spiky red hair, yellow eye, tons of fire powers. Clearly not evil in any way.
Yep.
What do you guys think of the character Ruthven?
I don't know. Is he charlatan? I mean, it seems to imply that. I don't know enough about this character to care, unfortunately. And I wish I did, because he seems like a cool antagonist, but like in a position of power, and we come to find out later that he's obviously hiding a secret about the queen, and it's like, where'd he go? I wish we could have spent some time with him.
Yeah, the first tip was, he didn't make it to the masquerade until
That got
after
attacked.
everything had finished. Oh, something got in my way. Yeah. We've seen characters do that in other anime. and it's always a recipe for a bad guy. But I really find that intriguing that you think he might be the mist creature, charlatan.
The thing that tipped me off was he didn't show up until after charlatan left, and at the end when he's attacking Noe, he leaves that dark magic on him.
Yeah.
That seems to be, and that would fit in with this desire to turn vampires into feral beasts that will hunt and kill humans.
I don't think so. The smoke monster's name is Nania, and I'm pretty sure it was a woman inside there. The smoke did pull away for a little bit, and you could see some female facial features underneath. I do think working for Ruthven, and full cards on the table, I actually didn't get he was a villain here. It wasn't until the next scene where they're talking to him, and they're like, oh, it turns out the bad guys wanted to kill Luca. Why would they want to kill Luca? Well, he's the Grand Duke, and so he has all the power to advise the Queen. He's like second in line. But since he's a kid, I've been doing it. Oh man, who could want to kill that kid? That'd be crazy.
Are you a chancellor? By any chance, are you a chancellor?
Are you a lion named Scar?
Exactly.
Played by Jeremy Irons? Because I think you might be trying to take over the kingdom. Yeah.
Do you know a Palpatine?
Exactly. Oh. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, they go to his house. We get a scene of Noe who passed out again. He wakes up and he finds Vanitas on a bell tower, and they have a fight about basically, like we said, the contradiction of like, hey, I'm glad we got out of here. Well, I don't like you. Go away. Well, I'm not gonna go away. I'm gonna hang out with you. Fine.
It's just weird and uncomfortable and kind of a bit juvenile.
Then they have a conversation with Ruthven. Is that this scene? No, it isn't. That doesn't happen yet. Let me look at the notes, guys.
Don't they go have pies?
Yeah, they go have pies. Yeah, gosh, one of my favorite scenes happens. Like, probably one of the, in a good way, thirstiest scenes I've ever seen in an anime that didn't feel like a 14-year-old wrote it. Yeah, they go have pies because Noe has to meet with Ruthven later, but they're like, hey, let's hang out with Luca and Jean. Vanitas is like, hey guys, look at the hickey I got from Jean. No, he's been officially marked by her as hers because she drank so much blood from him, and Luca's like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. And he's like, don't worry, she was going crazy from the corruption. So Jean suddenly grabs Vanitas and runs away with him and is like,
literally out the window.
I I didn't go crazy. Why are you lying? He's like, I didn't want to hurt the kid's feelings and I didn't want to embarrass you. Meanwhile, Noe is like really bummed that he didn't get to drink Vanitas' blood because it smells really good. So he's eavesdropping on them. And Vanitas is like, Gene, I love you and like you're the best and I'm gonna help you on one condition.
Two.
He's like, I'll never tell you a secret. Yeah, I have two conditions. You only ever drink my blood and you have to call me by my name. And then she like grabs him and starts drinking from him, and it's like, okay, I see why people use vampires in fiction sometimes.
So
Well,
here's
he
another
also
nitpick.
explains that like there's a euphoric feeling.
Yeah, their
from-
chemistry works really well together.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
And
not
that's how a
always the
vampire
case.
keeps you still, is it injects you with, paralyzing euphoric stuff.
Well, apparently sometimes it's not necessarily euphoric, but dependent on like the like you said, the physical compatibility.
Yeah.
But I do have a nitpick here, and that is in regards to these marks. It is clearly stated that these marks bestow some of the vampire's power onto the person that they have, marked. I want to know how much power, and I want to know which vampires have given him these marks, because we've only been allowed to see two, and I'm wondering if he has more going on underneath there that we haven't been allowed to see, because he survives so many things that there's no way a human should survive these things, especially if they're not hopped up on chemicals the way the Chaucers do. So I wonder, if you tally up all of those little boosts that he's got from however many of those he has, and if they're dependent on like the respective power level of the vampire, does that put him at a moderately strong level, like maybe a Dampier level? Or because we see Dante and some of the others, and they believe that they're strong enough to deal with, maybe weak vampires, I guess.
He does seem to get his butt kicked all the time, though. Like, no, he carries him around like luggage sometimes, but it's hard to know. It's just impossible to know with him too. He could also be keeping his powers close to his vest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Noe is bummed, and Dami comes and they suck each other since he couldn't suck him. And
Yep.
I'm sorry, what?
Times.
Yep.
Mutual sucking. Okay.
Just a little.
I'm sorry. What number was
sucking.
Vanitas?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Then they go dancing, and Dami dances with Jean to because she's so cute, and Noe decides to teach Vanitas how to dance, and ask him what he thinks love is, and he's like, I don't know, but Jean's super cool and makes me feel good, so I love her. And this is where he says, I can't. If she loved me, I wouldn't like her. I can't love anyone that would love me, and that's why I love her, because she clearly cannot stand me. Number one favorite trait. And then we get Noe going to talk with Ruthven, and they have that conversation where they explain, like, oh, those killers were trying to kill Luca, and then he's like, hey, I want to ask Vanitas some questions. Vanitas like, I want to ask you questions. We'll exchange questions first, though. Take me to see the Queen. I think she's the problem with everything. She's the one behind the curses. This is highly offensive thing to say to vampires. And everyone gets really, really mad, especially Ruthven, who sets the entire room on fire, and he kicks Vanitas and Noe out. And we catch up with him like a week later, back at the hotel in the human world with Lord Auric, explaining what happened. But then it cuts back to Lord Ruthven, and he's like, I messed up because I reacted to that like any vampire would, but Luca didn't, because it's true. And now Vanitas knows it's true. And we see a shot of like the Queen's hand, and it's like a dark gray, like she's corrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stuff clearly going on there. But we're back in the human world, and a new mystery to look into. So they meet up with Dante, and there's people being kidnapped by the Chaucers. This is a group of Catholic vampire hunters. And they eventually sneak into Notre Dame? Notre Dame? I don't know.
Basically.
The place where the hunchback and the bell. And they find these underground tunnels, and They find this room with all these vampire skulls, and this monster comes in. They're disguised in priest clothes that they stole, and he's like, "Hey guys, oh yeah, these are vampire skulls. I'm lost. Follow me." And so they do, and then he's like, "Okay, but I knew you guys are lying." So he locks Vanitas in a cage, and then he hits Noe with a flash bomb so vampires can see the real world and the world the magic part of the world, and this mixes them together so he can't differentiate. It basically blinds them.
Mm-hmm.
This character, his name is Roland. He has a blonde afro, and he loves loving things. And
he's best boy.
And he's best
Yeah.
boy. What do you guys
awesome.
think? He's everyone's favorite character. We usually like if it's your favorite character, you get to talk about him first. We all love him. So whoever's first, who loves Roland the most?
I appreciated Roland a ton in this anime for a couple reasons. One, he was super refreshing as far as a tropey anime character, because normally when you get two competing worldviews, nobody's willing to back down. Everyone sticks to their own convictions, and there's always conflict.
Hey, it's Twitter.
This character has those convictions and is all in on them, but he is able to listen to reason, and watching a vampire and a human not only get along but have fun together fundamentally changes his entire worldview. And watching that happen in an anime character was super refreshing. Plus, he is hilarious to watch. His combat is very, very good. I like his weapons. And he's very, very confident in himself. I love his line of, how many paladins do you think I could take? 3?
Yeah.
4?
Right.
I just love it.
Yep. So one of the things that cracked me up about him was that there's another paladin who describes what's so frightening about Roland, and that is that Roland doesn't have this immense faith in God. That's not what gives him his strength. His strength comes from his immense faith in his own faith in God. Which to me just cracks me up, because it just shows that you don't necessarily have to have a solid foundation of a belief to be wholeheartedly in on that belief, simply because you get that necessary euphoria and that sort of strength and invigoration from that fanatic act of belief, if it's something like the way Roland is doing it. And that does happen. So to me, I thought that was really funny, just the way that they presented that. But I also thought I wanted to mention, Jason, where you said that he was willing to, listen to reason, but not until he was kicked into the earth. Purely because he would not listen for so long, and he was like chasing them around trying to hunt them. And then finally, when they incapacitate him so that all he can do is like look paralyzed, then he's like, oh, how did I miss that? Why didn't you guys tell me? Why didn't you say something? And yeah, so I really enjoyed this character, and I enjoyed how once he caught a glimpse that something that he believed didn't turn out to be true, he never stopped looking. He looked deeper and deeper, to the point where another paladin was telling him, you better knock this off. Your family and your friends, something bad could happen to them. And his response was what you said, Jason, threaten them back. Like, I'm going to kick your butts. Don't talk like that. And that's just really refreshing to see.
I love his hair. He's got that beautiful blonde curly hair. When this character shows up, this scene that we're at, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this guy. This seems a little too preppy, too peppy. Yeah, not preppy, peppy. For me, I don't know. And by the end, he totally won me over, and I was like, this is the best character. And I was super bummed when the arc ended. He's like, I'm gonna go my own way. Oh, come back! No, just hang out with the guys. You should always be on the team. And actually had some of the few cool action set pieces in the whole anime. His fighting style is not opening a book and then just reading it and being done. He has a really cool weapon and does some cool stuff with it. Yeah,
Chain
I love
swords.
I love Roland. So yeah, he's fighting Noe. Noe is trying to apologize for invading their area. He's like, no, it doesn't matter. No vampire comes in here and lives. You're dead. Actually, one thing I want to mention, I was a little worried Roland switched too easily when they became friends, because he at first he was like, he says later, we only kill bad vampires, but in this scene, he's like, no, I see vampire, I kill. There is no such thing as good or bad, and we do find out later he just thought all vampires were bad, but he had always focused on all his experience had been bad, evil vampires.
Mm-hmm.
They fight. It's like two moves. We see him cut Noe, and then Noe grabs the chain blades, but he has an electric battery installed, so he shocks him. Also, we got to mention that he realizes who Vanitas is, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're like the guy. We love you. You're the best." And Vanitas is like, "No, I hate you." Scratches him. And he's like, "I don't serve anyone. I don't care about humans. I don't care about vampires. I don't like either of you guys." He's like, "I forgive you for that, and I'm gonna save you."
I pity you. I don't want your pity.
You know what's funny is he's a direct reflection of Vanitas with saving the vampires. I just thought that.
You're right. You're right. Because he's just constantly saying, I pity you. I'm going to pity you. I'm going to pity you no matter what you want.
Yeah, I'm going to save you.
Uh-huh.
No, I think Noah even calls it out. Like, I can't believe you've met your match. Like, there's someone.
Yeah, that's true.
As crazy as you.
Yep.
Benitez does manage to get out of his cell though, and they stall this guy long enough to throw him and then get away. Roland is joined by two of his lieutenants or underlings, and they go hunting him down. I do love that he calls in a report, and they're like, "Shouldn't you have mentioned it was Vanitas?" Oh well, I guess I forgot that I'll put it in the official report.
Oopsie.
Then this was a little odd though, because the whole thing is like, okay, now we're dealing with these vampire hunters and they're evil, and then Vanitas is like, oh yeah, actually we're here for Dr. Moreau, this evil scientist that had used to work with these guys and who I think is back, and he had captured me and experimented on me. And then we see this doctor is watching them through a camera. So what we're presented with as like the antagonist of the situation is just like oops, I also happen to be here instead of the actual antagonist. And then there's a whole nother antagonist and a whole situation to deal with. While we get the scene with the robots turned homicidal and attacking the vampire hunters, because Roland's like, yeah, we'll find them. Oh wait, our robots are attacking us, and this is a scene where I'm like, oh yeah, robots are in this world,
right?
Eventually, they knock out one of Roland's people, and Vanitas like, we're gonna take him hostage, and Noah's like, oh, we need a hostage. I'm taking you hostage because I'm sick of your BS because they have a fight. So he holds Vanitas hostage, and Roland's underlings are like, they're faking. They're friends. And Vanitas is like, he's not faking. Save me. This is a psychopath vampire. He throws Vanitas and uses that to hit Roland, and then grabs him and says, I am sorry for everything. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Noe, and we are here because this is what's going on. Would you please listen to us? And Roland's like, okay, yeah, I will. And they sit down and they talk about Dr. Moreau, and Roland's like, we're best friends now. and so they join up. They go to Dr.
Vanitas is like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yep. Noe's super excited because this is what he wanted from the beginning. He's like, I'll just explain the situation. It's fine. And Vanitas is like, no, they will murder you. They are vampire hunters. And then Noe was right. You just need to talk things out. They go and they find Dr. Moreau, who welcomes them in.
Back to the House of Pain. Come on, you guys know the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
had to add that.
He has little confetti bombs when they come in. He's very excited. We do need to talk about that. Vanitas's number is 69. Again, just
Nice.
Anime is really on one track here. I
Yeah,
think the anime's thirsty.
but yes, the writers.
Yeah.
They just got through. They were in quarantine from a pandemic. They haven't seen another person in a while. Yes.
Yeah.
Vanitas acts very friendly with him. He's like, "Hey, no, we came here to help you, doctor. We're here. I'm trying to get him to talk." And he does reveal, "I'm working for someone now who brought my lab back." He's like, "Oh, who are you working for?" "Oh, I can't tell you that." "Hey, can I have your eyeball, Vanitas?" "Oh, they're blue now. They're lighter blue than they used to be. Let me have one." And then Noe gets really upset, grabs them, and reveals, "We're here to stop you." And then one of the bad guys from Charlatan, the guy with the spider mask, shows up and rescues Dr. Moreau, and they release a monster. We see some flashbacks with, and the doctor even mentions a kid, the experiment number 71, who's a white-haired kid who Vanitas doesn't seem to have gotten along with very well, that was rescued with him when he was there. He'd also given the backstory. His family was murdered by vampires. He was rescued by Chaucer's, the vampire hunters, but then ended up in Dr. Moreau's experiments until he escaped. And so he just thinks, he's like, "Oh, so don't you hate vampires?" He's like, "No, I hate everyone. Vampires and humans suck. They're all
Yeah, and
bad."
I don't think he escaped so much as Vanitas rescued him.
Number 71.
No, Vanitas, the blue vampire, rescued 69.
Well, it was the angel woman or the road woman.
That's why I was considering the possibility that she is Vanitas.
Right. Could be.
Oh, the original Vanitas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They fight this. The monster is like a giant monster with a vampire inside of it, so they have to jump inside and fight it together. And they survive. And coming out, I do love Noe. Noe's like, "We're not going to run away. I feel like we can fight this. We can totally do this. Let's jump inside its mouth and do it." And they do, and they win. And they're laying on the floor, and Noe's like, "I totally underestimated that situation. It was way off." That's funny to me.
Yeah.
But they start laughing about having survived, and that's when Roland sees a vampire and a human laughing together, and that's what changes his worldview. So Roland lets them go, even though his superior or equal, whatever, Olivier shows up, and he's like, "What happened?" And then Vanitas and Noe rest by the river because they're so exhausted. And then we see the bad guys reporting to Ruthven. Guess what, guys? He's the bad guy.
Wait, is he?
Never saw that coming.
No, when they finally get out of the tunnels, they have a total like bro moment, and in this moment you realize, okay, they might not be best friends at this moment, but they're definitely heading down that road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we get the episode where Jean and Vanitas go on a date. Very much, take a breath from all that action type of episode. We don't have enough time to do anything big before the season finale and go on to season 2. But also, this is my favorite episode.
And I love that Vanitas gets a note from the original girl they saved on the airship to, "Hey, will you come on a date with me?" from Jean instead of the other way around.
So Jean's plan, because he had told No, I can't have anyone. I won't love anyone who loves me. He had told Dami. Dami told Jean. So Jean and Dami come up with this plan. Go to Vanitas. Tell him you're in love with him and you just think he's the best. And go on this date with him. Convince him you're in love and he won't like you anymore. So the whole episode is them doing stuff on this date. And he is super charming and suave. Saves her from a car. Buys her all this food. Like he's
Dami and someone else are spying on him the
Dante.
whole time.
Dante sees them and bumps into Dami, and so they spend the day spying on him together. But
and that Vanitas is aware of the whole thing from the beginning because, like, at first you get this. She called it the "you're a maggot" glare. You look at me like I'm a maggot. He does that initially when she says, "I think I've fallen for you." Right. But then he completely stops after that and he starts being all chivalrous and charming. And you just know from that point on that he's clued in on her act and he's acting on his own as well. And so good.
The best part though is Jean keeps freaking out because her acting is feeling very real. Like she keeps getting flushing and getting fluttery chest. It does end though when a little kid skins his knee and she tries to bite him, and Vanitas takes the bite for her, takes her home, or takes her somewhere private and lets her suck on him for a while. Yep, I said that. It came out of my mouth and I heard it. My bad. Anyway.
The scene's a lot better than the way you described it too. Like it's impassioned. It's fairly deep. I actually really enjoy their relationship.
Yes, and sensual, and also
the date,
kind of...
not the sucking.
No, the whole scene where they're in private and she's having trouble with being a curse bearer and this bloodluster. She thinks she's a curse bearer.
He asks, and she has something put on her that she can't say. And she's like clutching at her throat. He's like, "Oh, someone has made it so you can't say anything, so he can't fight." Yeah,
because I was wondering the whole time. I was like, "Why don't you just cure her with your book?" But he doesn't know what it is.
He says, "Yeah, I can't cure you unless I know." But he makes her the promise because she's afraid she'll turn into a monster. That if that ever happens, I will kill you for you. And then they have their sensual sucking time. Meanwhile, the B plot of this episode is that Ruthven takes Noe to a cafe. They talk about Vanitas and about vampires and humans, and he's like, "Oh," and it's because he had been told Noe got in our way with the whole Dr. Moreau thing. So he was going there to kill him, and then he's like, "Wait," he bites him instead, and then his bite power is if he bites you, he can. It's basically hypnotize you, and he tells you're going to do one thing I tell you in the future, and you have to swear it. And so he does swear it, and then when
forget I was ever here and heal your neck wound.
Vanitas learns from Jean that she came here at Ruthven's permission, and he realizes that something's wrong. He runs back to see Noe, but he's still in bed.
Cuddling his pillow
and having fallen out of bed like he always does. So everything seems all right. And then they learn there's a new monster that had been back in the human and vampire war.
So this is actually taken from real history, which it's pretty cool when you look into it. Like there was this wolf-like creature that plagued the countryside and killed more than 100 people in a short period of time, and they like hit it with a bunch of musket balls and it knocked it down, but the thing lived. They stabbed it, ran it through with a bayonet, and the thing ran away, but it lived. They shot it with arrows, the thing ran away, but it lived. They thought they'd killed it. They brought back like heads of giant wolves and stuff, but then it kept showing up. Nobody really knows what it is. There's all kinds of theories, but nobody knows.
How do you know that, but not Marquis de Sade?
Oh, because I'm very much into like mythological stuff.
Okay.
But I only review characters from history if it's like from an anime. So I probably would have found out at some point because I'm sure he'll wind up more predominantly,
kind of like Bungo Stray Dogs. You kind of went into the history of those guys.
Exactly.
All right. So they learn about this, and then but Noe can't focus because he wants to taste Vanitas' blood so bad. It's the point where he actually asks, "Can I taste your blood?" And Vanitas tells him, "If you ever taste my blood and see my memories, I will kill you." And then he goes to sleep out on the roof, and then the next day they are getting ready to set out for this next adventure, and Vanitas is all upset that Noe's being so mopey. And he's like, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked that. And it is kind of, I want to see your past. But you also do smell really good and tasty." And he's like, "Well, if I ever get blood on my clothes, you can lick it off. Just JK." And then
that ain't happening either.
They go to get on a train. Noe bumps into a young woman who is animated well enough to probably be an important character. And then they get on the train, and Noe's worried he would have been abandoned. And just like, "I'm not going to abandon you. Shut up." And then we see a young woman with the charlatan bad guy saying, "It's almost time for my vengeance." And that's...
I think she's going to be the creature.
That makes sense. I really want it to be a werewolf. I'd really like if werewolf shows up.
Well, we kind of did get one, the second cursed guy.
Yeah, and the little girl, she
Yeah.
she had a wolf form too.
Mhm.
It does seem a wolf form is kind of prominent.
It's kind of weird that the guy turned into a big werewolfy thing, and his flesh changed and everything, and he bit Jean, and he was able to fix that guy. But the little girl that
No.
changed into the same thing.
So the girl's flesh turned into wolf. His wolf form was purely the smoke.
Oh, shadow. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But
his flesh had not changed yet.
it
Mm,
doesn't seem like it's time based because that guy had been doing it for a while, and the little girl was
yeah.
that day.
Must be
All right.
willpower based.
That is any thoughts on the ending?
It was abrupt. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Same. I thought
Nothing was wrapped up.
Exactly. It felt like it was more of a primer for the second season than it was to actually conclude this season satisfactorily. The big arc that ended was really just with Roland all the way back there with Moreau. That was the last time that something, some kind of arc happened too long ago.
This is one of the things that frustrated me about the show. Like I was starting to get into it, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, Moreau is still on the loose. We don't know a lot about Charlatan. Noah just had something happen to him, and that's now ticking time bomb. We started a brand new adventure. We don't know much more about Vanitas' past than we did in the first 3 episodes. Nothing was wrapped up, and I was really frustrated about that.
Yeah, and then it makes you remember that in the very first episode, it's like Noe talking about how he had to kill Vanitas, and you're like, wait, what? You guys are barely getting along, and you're gonna go hunt this. It could be 7 seasons down the road before that actually happens, and then I'm gonna feel strung along.
This feels like the beginning of a 700 episode anime, and I'm just nothing hooked me to where I would want to invest that.
I could see this on the scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Memoir 723.
All right. I mean, we did skip a lot of the story about like teacher and grandfather. That Noe always talks about his teacher, who apparently is Market Assad, and who seems very villainous in the flashbacks, but he obviously remembers very fondly. So it's hard to know what that is up with that. How he's involved.
There's one scene, because in all the scenes that we see him, we either don't see his head, or if we do see his head, he's very humanish looking, just like all the other vampires. When he takes the head of his friend, he is monstrous looking.
Almost like a cursed vampire himself, but like a gold and black smoke cursed around him.
With that huge smile going on.
Yeah, with the big creepy smile that the bad guys have had. Yep.
So
it also creeped me out that he was always calling Noe my kitten. I don't know why, but that just was really creepy, and I'm sure it was intended to be so effective.
And see, this is why I brought up Murr in the pre-show, because you didn't even mention him.
You're supposed to mention him. I actually really hated that he called Noe cat in French, because I didn't realize he was calling him cat in French, or I figured his name was just cat in French, and so I wrote that down as his name the first time, because they don't say anyone's name for the first episode until the end. So I thought the main character, Noah's name was Cat. Cool. All right, let's go to final reviews. Jason, this was your pick. What do you think?
It had some strong moments. It had some decent world building. Some of the characters I actually was really interested in. They did not stick the landing on anything. But I didn't have a bad time with the anime. I found myself getting into the story, but like I said just a moment ago, nothing quite hooks me to where I want to continue. So because I'm kind of all over the board with this, I'm just going to give it a 3, because I'm right down the middle.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
Definitely a 3 for me as well. I just really, I'm not going to remember it. Give me a month or 2, and I'm going to be like, oh, what? Yeah, we did watch that, didn't we? I don't mind vampire anime. I think they can be really entertaining, really cool. But it depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? Like pick a lane and stay in it. And this anime just really didn't want to do that. So it just kind of left me with a sense of Well, not having reached the climax that was possible to reach. 3.
All right. I'm going to go with a 2 because outside of like the sensual scenes, there wasn't a whole lot that I actually cared about. I do think those scenes were entertaining and well done for an anime. But other than that, I didn't care. I don't care. I don't plan on following up on this one. I was bored a lot. I think it's a major shame to have superpowered characters and then your battle sequence is a book opening and then the fight's over. That seems like a sin in shonen anime land. So 2 for me. Mur was a terrible character too. I can't stand her.
You son.
He could go through that screen.
All right. So again, our next anime is going to be the Idaten Deities Know Only Peace. This is about hero gods that are made to battle an enemy, but then the enemy is defeated, and the new gods are like, okay, well, we don't really have a purpose, and then now they have to get ready for war again when they have never experienced it before. So this is Jeremy's pick, and that'll be our next anime. I believe it's 11 episodes on Crunchyroll. If you have thoughts about the case study of Vanitas or any other anime that we talk about, like Sunny Boy, feel free to share on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or you can come to our website, theanimebakaclub.com, and reach our contact, or go onto one of our discuss pages and talk there. Or you can reach out to us wherever you found the podcast, and we will enjoy the feedback and respond to you as well. Any other thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just it would be really helpful
no thoughts. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
You're not sorry. Don't lie to me.
I'll be quiet. You interrupt me before we start every podcast that never
That's
gets
not
recorded.
true.
That is
Not every.
true. But go ahead. I will be quiet.
Please feel free to leave us a 5-star review wherever you found this podcast, or give us a thumbs up on YouTube. It really does help us in our channels and our growth. And if you really like the show, please share it with your friends. We'd love to hear from all of you.
All right, let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
This anime sucked.
Sayonara.